This is Tank from SWA, and you are watching the RO Sports Show.
Good evening and welcome to the RO Sports Show, your June 28th edition. Hope everybody watching and listening had a great week this past week. I know that I did. How about you guys?
Had a good week.
Good.
And we've got plenty to talk about. We're going to look at our NBA draft recap. We're also going to take a look at the NBA awards that were presented this past Monday. We've also got an exclusive interview with former Clemson Tiger Tyrone Crowder later on in the show. We'll get to all that later. But first, guys, let's start with the NBA draft recap. So the draft was last week. It ended after our show got over. We made the mock draft. We actually got a few right this time as opposed to the NFL where we literally had one pick right. So we actually had the first two picks right. I remember that. And I think we had the last two picks right. So nice little NBA draft sandwich there, if you will. But just like we did following up the NFL draft, I want to ask you guys to start this segment off. In your opinion, who had the best draft? What was the best pick?
I think Phoenix Suns had a good pick in picking up Arizona's own DeAndre Ayton, who went number one. And I think he will compare up with Devon Booker and a former 1-2 tandem for the future, for years to come. I could see this a scenario where Phoenix has always been in position to make the playoffs, but always come up short. But I think this is going to be their year on the rise.
Yeah, and it's a tough West, so they've got to start building. I think he's a good piece. What about you, Russell? Who do you think had the best draft?
Well, I'm going to say Cleveland picked a really good one. They picked Colin Sexton, who is isn't a familiar territory with LeBron. Of course, carrying a team. I would say he kind of carried his team a little bit in the playoffs. So I'm going to say Colin's a really good fit for Cleveland. He can definitely find something in there and make a lot happen. So
should have known you'd take a Roll Tide player. We're going to talk about Colin Sexton and the Cavs here in just a minute. As far as my pick for having the best draft, I'm going to take the Denver Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr., a guy that just last year, if he would have been able to come out of high school, probably would have been the overall number one pick.
Yes.
When he came out of high school, he was the number one recruit. Of course, we know now he went to Missouri, got his back hurt, missed basically the whole season. I still think he can turn out to be a dynamic player. I think the Nuggets are a team that's on the rise. They were able to get him with the 14th pick. There's a lot of value in that because if he's able to be a superstar, then it looks great. With the 14th pick overall in the lottery, if he sits out the rest of the year, you still got a good team. So I think that's a good choice for the Denver Nuggets. Now let's take it on the flip side. See, what do you think? Who had the worst pick?
And I'm just gonna go on a limb and say Charlotte Hornets lost out on this one because they did drafted a guy and then they traded away to Mikal Bridges. And I think this is gonna come a scenario where Mikal Bridges is gonna be a developmental player for a year or two. And I think this is where he's going to learn from Michael Gilchrist and Nicholas Batum. But it's like we said a few months back, I think Charlotte needs to redo over with their contracts, need to redo their rosters a little bit and start rebuilding from the draft. But it's in the Charlotte Hornets in the past few years, it's always been a scenario where they get guys, trade them away, and then they don't get nothing out of it.
All right. What about you, Russell? Who's your worst pick of the draft?
Well, really, I think everybody can benefit from the draft. So, but I guess maybe Golden State might have the worst pick just simply because I don't really see them needing it.
Yeah, and they drafted Jacob Evans out of Cincinnati, who...
And nothing against him, but I think this Golden State's so good right now, they really don't need anybody.
They don't. And, I mean, last year or 2 years ago, they drafted Jordan Bell out of Oregon. And, I mean, you almost just going to Golden State just makes you better by osmosis, if you will, just because you're on a championship team. My worst pick... also centers around Michael Porter Jr., that being the LA Clippers, who were sitting right in front of the Denver Nuggets, passed on Porter at 13, took Jerome Robinson, from Boston College, which is not a terrible pick. I just, for some reason, I'm real high on Porter, and I think that looking back on it, the Clippers may regret that one. So, real quick, throw it out there. Anything that surprised you? Anything you found out of the ordinary?
The only thing that surprised me for the first time, I think, in NBA draft history was really no trades for veterans and whatnot having moved around. And this is where teams were drafting guys, but they were trading away for first, second round pick.
I think it was like since 02 or 03
Yeah.
since no other NBA players were moved around
Yes.
in this draft. So I agree. You got anything else?
I mean, that was what I'm going
Yeah,
to say. So.
yeah, and that's a big surprise. So you're absolutely right. Now, you're talking about Colin Sexton, him going to the Cavs with the 8th overall pick. So I wanted to ask you guys. Let's assume that LeBron leaves this summer. Colin Sexton, is he enough to keep the Cavs afloat?
I think he could come in, do some things, and pretty much can push him to be a playoff team. But going back to NBA Finals, no. I remember a scenario where Kyrie Irving was drafted. LeBron was already going to Miami, and it was kind of like Cleveland went from one of the top teams in the NBA and went down to the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a scenario where this is where LeBron, what he wants to do, if he wants to pretty much make Colin Sexton a better player.
What do you think, Russell? If everybody else on that team stays except LeBron, which means you still got Kevin Love, you've still got Tristan Thompson, Kyle Korver, all those other guys on the team. Is Colin Sexton enough to replace him? Not replace him because nobody's going to replace LeBron, but enough
Right.
to keep them in, just say in the playoff competition.
Well, I mean, Colin's a great player. I mean, he definitely knows how to be in a situation where he has to be the leader. But coming into the NBA, he might. I don't know if he can take that leadership role immediately. Maybe Kevin Love might be that leadership role in Cleveland now if LeBron does leave. So, I can see them two working really well. And Colin's a team player, so I can see him probably rallying his players or his teammates around him and trying to get things going because, Alabama and majority of these college teams, they always play as a team more or less. So I can see that being the case. Now, it might make a well-rounded team to make the playoffs. Probably not go any further in the first round, though.
And you made a good point, Jeremy. I mean, LeBron left Miami. Kyrie, number one pick. We see how good he is now. But even on that team that LeBron left with the same players, there was like a 30-win difference. So it just goes to show you how much of a difference LeBron makes on your team. Now, got to talk about the Hornets. They had, as you said, the worst draft. They initially drafted, what was his name, Shea Gilgeous?
Yes.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Out of Kentucky.
Out of Kentucky. They then immediately traded that back to the Clippers right behind them. So they only moved back one spot. They took Miles Bridges out of Michigan State, and they got 2 second-round future draft picks from the Clippers. First of all, throwing in getting the 2 second-round picks, doesn't that maybe alleviate moving back and taking a player that you're not necessarily happy with?
I think to me this is a scenario where you just got somebody. It's like it's paying Peter. You rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit. Why call it? And I think this is where Charlotte kind of got. You just got. I pretty much want to say a word I don't need to be saying, but this is a scenario where he's going to be a developmental player, and it's going to take Charlotte for a little while to develop this guy. You already got Michael Gilchrist in front, so I it's kind of like in a way where I can see Charlotte has to be in the rebuilding mode.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I think right now, taking Miles Bridges, I probably said this before, I feel like they keep drafting the same player year after year that fits the same mold, and they've got these guys stacked up on one another. You got Bridges, you got Malik Monk, you got Kid Gilchrist, you got Comiskey, you got Marvin Williams, all these forwards, power and small forwards.
And Cody Zeller and all of that.
Cody Zeller, he's more of a center of a 5, but whatever. I mean, all these big guys that keep stacking up. If you're going to draft somebody, find somebody to put in the backcourt with Kemba. What do you think, Russell, with this, with getting those draft picks in addition to trading back?
Well, I feel like anything at this point could probably help Charlotte out, but kind of like what we've been saying, rebuild. They need to just flat out. I mean, of course, not everybody. I think some guys can stay around and be a leadership role, but for the most part, they need to get rid of a lot of those guys on the team.
Well, we sat here. It was either last week or week before last when they traded Dwight Howard, so we already know that's going to happen. And we kind of thought at that point that was going to be the beginning of this rebuild that we keep talking about. Now, we haven't seen Kemba move. Of course, that could all change this time next week after the July 1st free agency period started. But another guy that the Hornets took in the second round was Devontae Graham, who was the point guard for the Kansas Jayhawks this past year. I think he was there for 4 years, so a 3 or 4 year guy. He's actually from Raleigh, North Carolina, so bringing him back, think that's going to make a difference?
I think it is going to be a scenario where he can learn under Kemba and possibly he could be your next franchise guard.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at. Do you see where drafting Devontae is a kind of a hint, goodbye Kemba? What do you think, Russell?
I mean, drafting somebody from the same state will help build a fan base around that player because it's from here. It's hometown type of home state rather type of deal. So I can see that, but I don't think it's going to be in a Kemba.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, Kemba's only got, 2 more years
Yeah.
on his contract? I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it again. If you're not going to make the playoffs with him, trade him off and get something for him before he just leaves willy-nilly and you're out with nothing to show for it. So, speaking of home state players, I don't know that Grayson Allen's from North Carolina, but of course we know he played in the state of North Carolina at Duke for 4 years. We didn't have Grayson Allen on our big board last week. Matter of fact, when I did the full big board, I did a 60 one by myself. I didn't have Grayson Allen going at all. And that was nothing against Duke or a hatred for Duke, because we're going to talk about the rest of their squad here in just a minute. But Grayson Allen ends up going in the first round, number 21, to the Utah Jazz. Good pick for them. What do you think?
I think it's a good pick to pair it with Donovan Mitchell and my man, the center from that area. I think they can form a good trio together. And I think Grayson Allen brings toughness, intensity, also bring some kind of leadership role. But I don't think the only thing I hate what he gonna do, just don't throw a tip attempt and get mad and get technical fouls.
That's what I was going to ask you, Russell. That probably won't play in the land of the Mormons, will it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe picking somebody you don't expect to be in it can very well bring some momentum there by bringing somebody in who was not expected to be drafted and could make some noise. It might very well happen. Sometimes you have to take a chance like that.
I mean, Gordon Hayward left, went to Boston. We thought Utah was done. They ended up making the playoffs again. Donovan Mitchell steps up. The guy you're talking about, Rudy what's his name?
Gobert.
Rudy Gobert. They're big, huge center. 2 guys that have been killing it this year. They're back. Or actually, they're not even back. They just stayed there. I think they've already got a good squad. I hate to say it, but adding Grayson Allen now, I think he's a guy that
adds defense.
Yeah, I don't know that he'll start, but I think he could be a 6-man or in that second rotation of 5 players that it could be maybe your top scorer off the bench, perhaps, because we know he can shoot threes from all over the building. And then finally, to end this segment up, of course, I just mentioned we're talking about Grayson Allen from Duke. He was one of 4 Duke players, which means 4 out of their starting 5 from last year went in the first 2 rounds. So let me ask you this. Shouldn't Duke have won a national championship last year?
They had opportunity. They blew it.
And Russell, I'll let you finish it off here. So 4 out of the 5 of them go into the first round. Krzyzewski turns around. All 5 of them actually left. Krzyzewski turns around, gets 5 basically top 100. I think 1, 2, and 3 for next year's recruiting class are going to Duke. Should they win a national championship next year?
I don't think so. I mean, Duke's always going to have a great program in basketball. So is UNC. All of the Carolina teams do pretty well in general. So I don't see them winning a national championship next year. They might make it probably to the Elite 8.
Well, I mean, let's face it. They're probably going to be preseason number 1 when that rolls around, like the official one. But that's been their case the last 2 years, and they haven't won a national championship. So, Kentucky, we've seen it with Calipari for years. He keeps stacking all these freshmen on top of one another, and you think, oh, man, they're all going to get drafted, and they do, but they don't. It's tough to get 5, 18, 17-year-olds to gel together, even throughout a season. So it'd be interesting to see whether Krzyzewski's able to bring them together. Of course, we know he's probably the best coach in college basketball. Anyway, moving on. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to take a look at the NBA awards and who won them from this past Monday night on ESPN. And then later on in the show, we're going to talk NASCAR. We're also going to take a look at Clemson's upcoming schedule, like we looked at Oklahoma last week, and we've got an exclusive interview with Tyrone Crowder, former Clemson player. So all that and more when we come back from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
At Richmond Community College, we prepare you for a high-skill, high-paying career in a variety of fields. From business to education, engineering, utilities, healthcare, criminal justice, information technology, and human services. At Richmond Community College, we can save you thousands of dollars on tuition through our university transfer programs that provide a seamless transition to universities and colleges throughout North Carolina. At Richmond Community College, we are always developing new courses and programs in response to the communities we serve. We offer day, evening, and online courses, and you can now complete 5 curriculum programs entirely online. At Richmond Community College, we believe in helping you prepare for a better life. Richmond Community College. Local college, big impact.
Exit Realty Platinum in Rockingham has listed one of the most beautiful homes in Richmond County. Located in Rockingham on Ledbetter Lake, the home features 4 bedrooms with bamboo floors and a kitchen featuring stainless steel appliances and granite countertops, and a master bedroom that overlooks Ledbetter Lake, along with a spacious tile shower and the attached master bathroom. The open living space leads to the back deck with a perfect view of Ledbetter Lake, and the property features its own boat dock. Want to see this beautiful home? Call Nicole Hayden with Exit Realty Platinum, your source for homes in Richmond and Moore counties.
My name is Jim Leach, and we have been using the Tim Hayden Construction Company for the last several years.
My name is Dave Owens and my wife Beth. We had some damage here at our place in Knollwood Village.
January 2nd, our house flooded upstairs coming through to the first floor.
Tim has responded very quickly with his team of people.
Our repairs went extremely well.
Tim made a very difficult situation much easier for us.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Jeremy, let's get into some NBA awards. So they happened this past Monday, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 awards to go through here. So let's start off with the Sixth Man Award. Like how I transition that, don't you? So the candidates were Lou Williams, Eric Gordon, and Fred VanVleet. So Lou Williams, of course, from the Houston Rockets. Lou Williams from the Clippers. Eric Gordon from the Houston Rockets. VanVleet from the Raptors. Now, Lou Williams won this. How many times is this now?
I think this is his third or fourth award that he has won. I remember he won it last year while I was a member of the Houston Rockets. This man is pretty much a true 6-man off the bench. He's probably the best thing behind Jamal Crawford, but he's reliable. He makes 13, 15 points a game for you, and he was a big help for the Clippers on last season. You can't get no better 6-man than that. I was surprised he ain't starting guard somewhere else.
So that's what I want to ask you, because Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford, another name that perennially seems like is up for 6-man. Both of them not only can give you 10, 12, 15 points, they can also go off for 30, 35 points at any given time.
Yes.
So what makes them such good 6-men, and why aren't they starting somewhere instead?
I think it's come down to loyalty, and I think loyalty for one thing, and I think they so comfortable with what they're doing.
Yeah, they've just been in that position for so long. That's kind of their niche.
Yeah,
in the
because
NBA.
Lou Williams won 6-man in Houston, the Clippers, and Atlanta, and he also won it. And I think when he was playing for the
I think it was the Lakers, wasn't it?
Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. See, and again, these guys are journeymen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know that you're going to get somebody that can lead your second offense, your second starting 5, and kind of like we were talking about with Grayson earlier, and can get you 15 points like that. Or who knows, maybe keep him in for 30 minutes of the game and he scores you 30, 35 points. So.
And I think two perennial guys who can probably get good contracts to start anywhere, but they so comfortable staying in their role.
Yeah, and I kind of compare them to middle relievers, left-handed middle relievers in baseball, and I say that because those guys always seem to have a job somewhere in the league, and I think Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford, for that matter, will be able to continue to play as long as teams will have them. So, moving on, we're going to move into most improved, and the candidates were Victor Oladipo, Clint Capella, and Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, Victor Oladipo was the winner. I don't think that was going to be any surprise because I know I've mentioned it. You probably mentioned it. The Pacers made that trade with Oklahoma City. Sent Paul George to OKC. They sent back Victor Oladipo, and I remember saying at the time, "Wow, that's not even at all." Both teams made the playoffs. Oladipo killed it this year. What do you think?
I think this was well deserved for Victor Oladipo because you push LeBron James to 7 games to 7 games while during that time, and Victor Oladipo scored over 20-something points a game. And I think that's a scenario where, if you could build a team around, if the Indiana Pacers build around against this guy, I could see it's where Indiana Pacers could be dangerous in the next couple of years.
Let me ask you a question. We're not really going to get into free agency this week. We're going to save it for next, since it's going to be starting next week. But let me throw a scenario at you. Is there any chance Paul George might want to go back to Indiana? Because you stay in the East, you've got Oladipo who's killing it now. All of a sudden you've got 2 out of a possible big 3 setup. So what do you think? PG-13, could he head back to Indiana?
If the money is right, he'll go back.
That's usually what makes the difference. Moving on to the Defensive Player of the Year. The candidates were Rudy Gobert, Joel Embiid, and Anthony Davis. Of course, 3 big-time names in the NBA, especially Embiid and Anthony Davis. Rudy Gobert, though, winning I think this is his second or third already in his young career for the Utah Jazz. So just real quick, what kind of dominance does this guy have to put forth to win this year after year?
Well, it's come down to, the sky's the limit for him. He always come out on top. You could give you 20 a night, and which is a very surprisingly, I never heard of this guy until this year. And I mean, and him and Donovan Mitchell together has formed a tandem, and they light it up every night. Which I always thought Anthony Davis would have got the Defensive Player of the Year award, because this man putting up over 25, give you 17, 18 rebounds a night. But it always go down to who does it better than the next person.
And I mean, all three of these guys obviously play great defense. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on this list. I think the difference maker is Gobert gives you a couple more blocks per game. Embiid and Davis particularly are more guys that
give you 20, a night.
Exactly, they're more offensive guys, whereas Rudy Gobert is just straight up beast on defense.
Yes.
So I think he's could probably win this thing for the next 2 or 3 years in a row if he really keeps his mind to it.
Because he might put you in the mind of the next Hakeem Olajuwon in this generation.
Very well could. Although Olajuwon was a little more lanky. Gobert's built like a 7-foot linebacker. Moving forward into the NBA awards, I know this one touched on you a little bit, but the Coach of the Year, your candidates were Dwayne Casey, Brad Stevens, and Quinn Snyder. Of course, Quinn Snyder, the Jazz's coach, Brad Stevens, the Celtics coach, Dwayne Casey, former Raptors coach, now Coach of the Year. What do you think about this?
I'm still trying to dog on this one. How in the world you could win a Coach of the Year award from a team that just fired you?
Yep.
Why? And then the next few weeks after he gets fired, he goes to Detroit. And you know what? And I think the one Coach Casey had made a comment at the awards that I think for Toronto Raptors, for the organization. Sure. Organization for their time and let me have this opportunity to coach this team, but also I take this award, which he had to accept it, because who takes an award for something that just got fired from a job from?
Yeah, he very well could have said, that's kind of embarrassing. I don't really
I think it was embarrassing to accept an award, from a team that just fired you. It would be.
But again, is it more embarrassing for him or for the Raptors? Because they fired him and then he becomes Coach of the Year. I mean, it's kind of like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a scenario where Toronto really going to regret it coming next season.
I think so too. Do you know who they hired to replace him off the top of your head?
They hired a guy from the Phoenix Suns, assistant coach.
Okay, all right. So they're going to try to go the assistant coach route.
Yeah.
Of course, as we know, Dwayne Casey moving on to the Detroit Pistons. So
Yeah, because you can build a team. He can build a team around Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond.
Absolutely.
And Reggie Jackson.
So, wouldn't it be something if he wins Coach of the Year next year with the Detroit Pistons?
And if he do, I'm telling you right now, Toronto, you made a stupid choice doing that.
They might have made a mistake on that one. Moving on, Rookie of the Year. Of course, we've had some discussions about this already. Your candidates were Ben Simmons from the Sixers, Donovan Mitchell from the Jazz, a lot of Jazz players on this list, and Jason Tatum from the Celtics. Now, Ben Simmons won this one going away, so it wasn't even close. But we've had a discussion about this. This technically was his second year. Should he have even been eligible for this?
The way I think, my understanding what the NBA rule is when it comes to a rookie, unless that rookie has been hurt all year round, never got the chance to play in the NBA season, he is eligible to come back and play as a rookie and can also win an award. But in that scenario with Ben Simmons, he's a great player all the way around. But I think, to me, if it came down to me, the most deserving rookie would have been Jason Tatum. Come in and took over when Kyrie Irving was down, and he almost led his team to the NBA Finals.
Absolutely. I understand that rule with the NBA, but what people don't sometimes realize is the stuff off the court. Ben Simmons got a chance to experience the NBA life, being a professional for a full season. Yes. So not necessarily playing 72 games, but the lifestyle that comes with being an NBA player, traveling, learning from some of the older guys, to where Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum didn't have that opportunity. No. They had to come in, learn right off the bat, just like Ben would have had to if he'd have played last year. Yeah. But again, Ben Simmons, it's not like he was a scrub. He had a tremendous year.
Oh, yes.
And I think the future's very bright for the NBA, because these are three guys that are great.
Yeah, and those guys are very rising stars in the next 5-6 years, and I think the sky's the limit for Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, I mean, you could have made a case for Simmons, Mitchell, or Tatum. So, Now, finish up with the, I guess, the most important award for the NBA, and that is the most valuable player.
MVP.
Your candidates were James Harden from the Rockets, some guy named LeBron James, whatever team he plays for, and Anthony Davis from the New Orleans Pelicans. So this one went to James Harden. First off, does that surprise you?
Yes, it does.
Why?
Because I think that this is a scenario where this is James Harden, who has been proven time and time after again, he's probably one of the best shooting guards in the league right now. He should have won it last year, but I think this was he took this team on his shoulders, almost made it to the NBA Finals, and this is an all-around performer. You can't get any better than that. Which, I remember him being a sixth man in Oklahoma City. Would never thought with that trade in Houston he would become one of the most top 5 guards in the NBA.
Yeah, and you never really know. Let me ask you this: LeBron's on this list. I'm not exactly sure how many MVPs LeBron has won.
4.
But couldn't you almost technically just give it to LeBron every year? I mean, are we taking him for granted?
Well, LeBron every season, LeBron gonna give you everything he's supposed to do. And you can pretty much put him in the MVP consideration every year. But it's like, I think what it is, they just want to give it to somebody else.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I feel like because he's so good, everybody knows he's the best player on the planet, has been for the last 15 years. Yes. And it's like, he seems to keep getting better and better and better as he gets older.
Yes. And
it's like, well, why don't you give it to LeBron? I mean, it's like they're almost intentionally picking other guys just so they don't pick LeBron every year because it's a given.
Yeah, you could do like a co-MVP like with Stephen A. Payton Manning won in 2003. You could do a co-MVP every year
and just let LeBron co-MVP with whoever it is year after year after year. That's not a bad idea. So, Adam Silver, if you're listening, by the way, Adam Silver re-up for another 5 years. So if you're listening, man, just give LeBron the co-MVP every year. But that's going to do it for our NBA awards talk. And when we come back, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to get into NASCAR later on in the segment. But first off, we're going to look at Clemson's upcoming schedule for this upcoming football season. And we've got an exclusive interview with former Clemson Tiger Tyrone Crowder. All that and more when we come back from the RO Sports Show.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection, friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
Is the camera further away, or is my eyesight getting worse? I can hardly see myself.
Well, maybe because we've been using this so long that we haven't really used that a whole lot. I'm not even sure what had flipped last time. Maybe it is your eyesight. Where's some glasses again?
It seems like it's
join the club, man.
So far.
Look at me and Jeremy. We got our 4 eyes ready.
Hello, I'm Tammy Benson, and this is Nancy Bowling. And we're here to tell you about the wonderful service at hospice and what they have to bring. From the nursing services to the medical director to in-home aides to a chaplain to bereavement to everything you can imagine, they were there to take care of it.
I cannot think of how the experience with hospice could have been any better professionally, spiritually.
And we're here with former Richmond Raider and Clemson Tiger standout Tyrone Crowder. Appreciate you joining us tonight on the RO Sports Show, Tyrone.
Yes, sir.
Now, let's start with your time at Clemson. So, talk to us a little bit about the atmosphere that Coach Dabo Swinney has created when it comes to Clemson football.
It's a great atmosphere. He's a great coach. Coach Swinney. He put down his rules. and and what he expects from us. And he's not too strict. He allows us to be grown men and allows us to make our mistakes. But just being here is awesome. I learn a lot from him. He's a great coach, and when you see on TV, it's really what you get.
So, as far as your playing career down in Clemson, first of all, what's it like playing in the college football playoff and then playing in the national championship and ultimately winning one? What's that like?
It's really like it's kind of hard to describe. Just like as far as being in the playoffs, because it's fairly new. It's just being one of the just grinding out throughout the whole season and just having an opportunity to compete with those guys and just compete with my teammates and seeing that pay off. But just as far as the playoff goes, just the level of intensity is just as far as the comparative is way up there. And it was fun playing against those guys. And then as far as winning a national championship, people ask me so many times, like, what does it feel like? I really couldn't describe it. Just one of those things. It's just a real moment. But I'm glad it was against Alabama, they're a powerhouse team. They're very well coached, and this is something I'm always going to remember.
Well, I have to tell you, Russell Parker, who's also on the desk, he's a big Bama fan, so he doesn't like to hear that, but the rest of us do. But now that, moving forward, now we know you went undrafted in the recent NFL draft, but you have been invited to at least one rookie camp that we're aware of, so tell us about that.
Yes, I went undrafted, and I got a rookie tryout with the Bengals, and then I tried out for the Bengals. That was earlier this year. And it was about a couple months ago, and it went well. It was a different experience. Everybody's at that level is really good, and then, so you got to bring your A game. So I love a good impression. I talked to the coaches. Just right now, it's just going to be like a waiting game and just kind of see what happens. So right now, just praying and hoping for the best right now.
Yeah, and you're right. Obviously, it's going to be a waiting game. But as far as yourself and your career moving forward, what are your plans right now?
Right now, I'm still working out, and I'm still going to pursue my opportunity to play in the NFL. But obviously, I got it. And in the meantime, right now I'm going to be coaching a little bit at the local high school down here in Clemson. At Daniel, it's called Daniel High School. I'm coaching offensive line in the meantime, and just waiting to see what happens. All
right, sounds like you're going to stick around football. That's really good.
Yeah, I've been around my whole life, and I got this time. As far as coaching, I got an opportunity to just give back and keep my knowledge, and I got a lot of knowledge. I got a lot of experience. I can help his kids and get better, and we can go out here and compete and win some games.
All right. Well, this is former Richmond Raider and Clemson Tiger standout Tyrone Crowder. Tyrone, we really appreciate you joining us on the RO Sports Show.
Sure, thank you.
And, of course, once again, we appreciate Tyrone for taking the time out to join us on the RO Sports Show. What'd you think about that dig to Alabama you gave us?
Well, they got one over us. We got two over them.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a whole lot of room to talk. But, of course, we hope nothing but success for Tyrone in his future.
It did take a Raider player to beat Alabama, so.
There you go. And, of course, one of his line mates is Sean Pollard, who, let's throw him out there, also is from Pinecrest. Played at Pinecrest High School. So a couple of local guys that beat up on your Roll Tide one year. So, but nonetheless, once again, we appreciate Tyrone giving us a call. So, with that being said, let's transition into taking a look at Clemson's upcoming schedule for this year. Of course, as we know, last year Clemson had to play Alabama in the first round, lost, whatever. As an ACC guy, of course, I had to pull for Clemson. Nonetheless, Clemson, what didn't happen was Clemson didn't lose anybody from that vaulted defense that they had last year. So they more than likely, depending on who you ask, but more than likely the consensus is that they have the best defense in the nation. So we're going to pull up Clemson's schedule for this year and take a look at it. So let me start with you, Jeremy. Looking at this, What jumps out to you? Any specific game or games?
I'm looking at Texas A&M and also Florida State, and then you got to look at the battle of the Clemson versus South Carolina.
All right.
And if I have my prediction right now, is Clemson will go 11-1.
With what being the loss?
The loss will probably coming from Florida State.
Okay, which they got to travel to Tallahassee.
Yeah, that's not an easy place to win at.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Of course, Florida State had some trouble last year after losing to Alabama first off in the season.
Yeah, I think we really
kind of
crushed their spirit.
Yeah, flushed them down the toilet bowl. But I think Florida State will be back this year. But Russell, what about you? Anything pop out to you?
I definitely agree with Jeremy on Texas A&M. Going down to Kyle Field, if that's the original home of the 12th man, that's going to be very difficult to get a win down there. They got a lot of momentum for this year as well. I also see an upset here, so I'm actually going to pick 10-2. They're going to lose out to, and they're going to lose to NC State being the upset there. Now they will be in Clemson during that game, but I could still see NC State pulling off upset because we seen it last year with Syracuse winning down there. I believe it was Syracuse, wasn't it? Or was it
it was Syracuse.
So anything can happen in college football, and that could very well happen. Not to mention they also lost only by a few points, or 38-31 last year, so it could happen.
Texas A&M, that obviously sticks out because it's the second game of the year, but they're playing Furman. That's an automatic win. So A&M at their house might as well be their first game of the season. Of course, Jimbo Fisher's there now.
Yeah.
And he's putting together a heck of a recruiting class, and he's always puts a great offense together. However, I've got Clemson going 11-1. And that one is going to be an upset when they play NC State, when State comes to Clemson, because for some reason NC State is a team that gives Clemson a problem every year.
Yeah, and
I don't know why it is. I can't explain it. But NC State always seems to have Clemson's number. Now, they don't always beat them, but as far as talent...
Well, NC State has got a good record for upsetting top teams. They upset Florida State a couple of years ago with their chances of going to the national championship game.
And there's a couple of reasons here. Now, I obviously, there's a good chance that Clemson could also go 12-0 and go undefeated. Looking at this, or they could go 10-2, or they could go 9-3. But with Florida State having to go to Tallahassee right after this NC State game, I look at it as a trap game for Clemson at that point. Mm-hmm. Second of all, Clemson is notorious for losing one game out of the year to a team they have no business losing to. Like you mentioned, Syracuse last year, you had the other team the year before, which was Pitt. Mm-hmm. Two teams that Clemson, especially talent-wise, just has no business losing to. And, of course, it was either last year or year before last. Deshaun Watson might have still been there. It was like the second game of the year. They're playing Troy. Yeah. And Troy gave them a run for their money. Yeah. Clemson's got, I think, I personally believe they're probably one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country. I don't know. You guys may agree. That's why I think at A&M, at Florida State will be tough, but I think they'll be able to pull both of those out. Of course, South Carolina, you mentioned that one, Jeremy. South Carolina's on the up and up, too.
That's a rivalry game where you just throw the record out of the book.
Absolutely. So, we can sit here and say that Clemson's going to win at least 10 games, but, you never really know. It could go either way. So
yeah, and, I still feel like if they lose that game to NC State, that's pretty late in the season. That's halfway in the season. That could very well hurt their chances of making the playoffs because they lost that late into the season.
Absolutely, because there's no doubt about it that Dabo and the Tigers are looking to get back into CFP this year. If they lose right there in the middle, actually towards the end of October, you're right. They're going to have to do some work, like maybe beating a Florida State who could be ranked by that point. Maybe South Carolina's ranked by that point. You don't really know. Maybe even Louisville. They lost Lamar Jackson, but Bobby Petrino's a good coach. He's a good recruiter, so they can maybe get their squad back up. But we made our predictions, and just like I asked you with Oklahoma last week, Russ, we'll start with you. Is Clemson back in the college football playoff this year?
10-2. I don't think they will.
Wow, so back to back, you got Oklahoma and Clemson missing out. I'm going to ask you when we get done who you do have getting in. All right, what about you?
I'd say 11-1, they'll get back in and probably lose in the first round.
I have no doubt they're getting back in the college football playoff because they represent the ACC.
Yes.
And the ACC has clout right now. It's either us or it's Florida State. And I still think new coach coming in, you're getting your quarterback back from last year. Now you've actually got the one that played last year instead of DeAndre Francois. So you've got a quarterback battle. You don't really know who your quarterback is. Of course, Clemson doesn't really know who their quarterback is either. Kelly Bryant came in as the starter. They had that kid, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but we call him Sunshine, that came in. Number 1 quarterback recruit out of Georgia in the country, though. Killing it. So we'll have to wait and see. Nonetheless, I expect the ACC to be represented in the college football playoff one way or the other. So, but let's move on from the green grass of the football field to the black asphalt of the NASCAR track.
Well, you could also say the Vineyard, considering we were in Sonoma, California this week, home of where they make wine at, wine country. So, they had road course racing this week, which is not a usual thing you see in NASCAR. They usually do that 2 times out of the year in the Cup Series. They have a little bit more in the bottom 2 series, but Cup's only twice a year. So this year we did a lot of S turns, and of course Martin Truex Jr. got the job done.
Right.
Him and Kevin Harvick were going back and forth for the lead. Kevin Harvick had the lead. Martin Truex Jr. had the lead for the most part of the race. By the time they got to the second stage, Harvick figured him out and took the lead then. Left for a while, but Truex figured him out and took the lead back. And the race was pretty much just back and forth between them two. So
let me ask you this. I know that they didn't race week before last because of Father's Day. So we didn't actually get a prediction from you on who you had on this race. So don't lie. Did you have Truex or did you have somebody else just in your head? Or did you even think about it?
I honestly was not. I mean, I expected them to be battling for a position, but I was thinking that this could be a new winner for this race. And that would be AJ Allmendinger, who's very well at road courses. But unfortunately, he actually made a mistake during the race. Starting at the second stage, I believe he had shifted the wrong way. Instead of going from, he tried a fast shift, going from second to third gear, he went from second to first gear. And that blew his engine up, so he was out of the race by then.
Yeah, that's the least thing you want to do is blow your engine up in the middle of a race. Now we're gonna look to the future here, actually a good bit into the future. But before we do that, by the way, if you go to the RO Sports Show's official Facebook page, you'll see every Tuesday night Russell's NASCAR Power Rankings. You had Truex move up to number 2 after this win. We had 2 weeks ago, of course, as I mentioned, that we missed because of Father's Day. You didn't even have Truex on the board. So 1 win bumps him to 2?
Yeah, he's showing a lot more potential. He finished really solid the last couple races. The reason why I kept him out of it because he wasn't really quite there yet. But I feel like now he does. He dominated the first part of the race. When he started to lose, he figured out what to do. He dug down deep and got that victory. So I can totally see him being on there. The only reason why I don't have him at number 1 is because Harvick was giving him a good run for his money as well. So Harvick could have very well won this race just as easily as Truex.
And that's a good transition too, because like you said, you had Harvick at 1 in your power rankings. We're getting ready to look at the next 10 races left.
We're in the final 10 races of the regular season. We're going to crown our regular season champion very soon, and then we'll be starting the playoffs.
So is it Kevin Harvick's to lose?
No, I really don't think Kevin Harvick. I'm not quite sure right now who is the points leader because it's based on regular season points, but I've been looking a lot more to the playoffs points, how those are set, because that's going to make the difference in the playoffs champion. So, but yeah, there's a lot of competition between those two drivers.
All right, well, we've mentioned it, so let's look forward. What we got coming up?
Well, we got Chicagoland. We're heading out to the Windy City this Sunday. Martin Truex Jr. is who I got to win this one. He's going to go. This will be his third back-to-back victory at this race.
Are you about to make predictions for all these?
Yes, I am.
All right, let me write this down.
I'm going to stick to all of them. I think I will.
All right, Martin Truex.
Chicagoland.
Chicago.
Now, Daytona has been a very interesting one for me. I wasn't quite sure on who to pick this one because this is a plate race. This is anybody's game here. But I've got Joe Logano getting his second victory of the season. Kentucky, of course, we had a crown jewel of horse racing there not too long ago, right?
Yeah, we did.
We're going to take the horsepower there this time with motors instead of horses. But I'm going to pick Kyle Busch to win this one. He has had bad luck at this track, but I think he's starting to figure this thing out now. He could very well win it. The only other person I can see winning will be Brad Keselowski, but I got Kyle Busch winning this one. New Hampshire, I think, will be our another first-time winner. This will be Denny Hamlin, who has not won a race yet this season. But if he wins it, he'll be the next. We're still single-digit in number of winners this season.
Right.
I got him winning at New Hampshire.
And that would make it 10 overall that have won a race?
No, I don't think it's 10. I think it'd be 9.
Okay.
Not quite sure, but going back to Pocono, I got Ryan Blaney winning that one. He's won it before. and I think he can do it again. He's got a strong team with that 12 car, so I think he can get the job done there. Watkins Glen, this is where I think AJ Allmendinger will get the victory. Road course racing is where he's great at.
That's right up his alley.
Yep. Really fast-paced racetracks. I love Watkins Glen. Only person I could see him that could beat him would be Keselowski or Kyle Busch.
Or Jeff Gordon.
Or Jeff Gordon. Michigan, we'll head back up to Michigan. I see Truex getting this win here. He knows Michigan well. Again, my second favorite will be Keselowski. I can see Keselowski winning a lot of these next 10 races, but I don't think he's going to get them. So I'm going to get Truex on Michigan. Bristol, night race. I'm probably going to pick... Kyle Busch does really well here. I'm going to pick Kyle Busch.
Okay.
And then, of course, the next race after that would be Darlington, of course, just down the road from here.
Yep.
I've got Kyle Busch winning that one there as well.
Wow.
I see him winning a lot of races coming up, including the next one, which is Indianapolis, where he knows how to dominate there as well.
So Indy is the last one of this little 10 stretch here.
Yeah.
So you've got Kyle Busch winning 4 out of 10.
I see him totally picking up a lot here as the heat comes on in the series. I can see him just walking away with the next 10 races.
So explain this to me. So these are the last regular season races, right? Mm-hmm. So if Kyle Busch goes along and wins, if it comes out exactly how you picked it, how does that work? Does that put him number 1 in the playoff?
Well, probably, because that's a lot of wins I just gave him right there.
Yeah.
But the more point, I think you'll get 5 points per win for the playoffs. Now, playoff points are completely different from regular season points. So those are ones that are going to advance you through the playoffs more than anything else. So the more points you rack up in the regular season, the more it helps you to kind of set through the rest of the playoffs. Of course, after every 3 races, 4 drivers get knocked out. So you got final 4 left for that one final race at Homestead, where the one who finishes ahead of the other 3 wins it.
All right, let me ask you this, because we only got just a couple minutes. If all this plays out, just give me a prediction. Who wins in a couple months? Who wins the NASCAR? I said the NASCAR. You know what I meant.
The regular season champion.
Who wins the Monster Energy NASCAR Series?
You mean at the when it's all
said and done? Who's the champ?
Oh man, that's really hard to look at right now.
I won't hold you to this one like I am these 10.
Yeah, don't do that.
I'll pull it for the Kyle Busch.
I'm going to say Truex just because he's defending champion right now.
All right, I won't write that one down. And then my last question, with just a couple minutes. If the guys that are racing in NASCAR now came to Rockingham right now, who would win?
Out of all the drivers that are currently racing right now.
Currently racing right now, because some of them haven't seen Rockingham, have they?
Some of them haven't. Logano has raced. He actually won the first ARCA race here.
Right.
A few of the drivers in the field have raced it. I believe Matt Kenseth he actually won for Casey Kane. Maybe one of those 3 drivers I just said there would probably win it. Logano, Kenseth, or Casey Kane.
I was just curious. I figured I'd throw it out there because, again, I mean, people haven't seen Rockingham for a while. It's been, 4 or 5 years, I guess?
It's been a while. I love going over to the rock that sits out there in front of the racetrack and reading the names on it.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of history out there that people just don't really see it, but if you go there and look at it, you'll see big names on there, names you had never heard of that you didn't know that they even raced there. I believe there's even I can't tell you who they are right now, but there's some drivers on there that you only heard about in NASCAR but didn't know they raced there before. So It's actually really cool because they actually got wins there.
Very cool. All right, well, that's going to do it for college football and NASCAR. And I guess next week we've done Oklahoma, we've done Clemson. We'll take a look at Georgia next week. So moving into the SEC, and of course we'll finish up with whatever that other team is after that. So. But when we come back, we're going to finish out the show the same way we always do. We're going to look at big impacts of the week. We're going to take a look at the RO Sports Show poll on our Facebook page, and then finish it up with Love It or Hate It. All that and more from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Welcome back to the RO Sports Show. As always, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. You guys, let's end the show the same way we always do, starting with Big Impacts of the Week. Of course, Big Impact of the Week brought to you by Richmond Community College, whose motto is Local College, Big Impacts. Let's start with you, Russell. Who's your Big Impact for the week?
I've got South Korea in the World Cup defeating Germany and knocking them out of the entire World Cup tournament. So, not so much as South Korea just beating them, but the fact that Germany is out, which is usually a strong favorite in the World Cup, that's a big impact on the World Cup in general. They beat them 2-0, and they're out. So
Absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mexico's out too now, right? Didn't we talk about that last week, or did they get completely knocked out?
I'm not sure on that. I think they might have got knocked out.
Because I know it was them that beat somebody. I remember because they were calling for Bama, right? Wasn't that what it was?
Yeah.
But yeah, Germany, of course, being out, that's definitely big impact. Jeremy, what about you? Big impact of the week. Who you got?
I'm going to say congratulations to Coach Nick, my former wrestling coach, and to his son, Lil Sean, for earning second place in the Mid-League to Midnight National Tournament.
Yeah, that took place in, I think, Fairfax, Virginia.
Yes.
Of course, wrestling's in that family's blood, isn't it? I didn't know you were a wrestler, man.
Yeah, I wrestled.
What was your record? Do you remember?
I sure don't.
Not good, not that good, huh? Oh, man. To go back to high school, that would be. I'd like to see you wrestle, man.
Oh, yeah.
You'd probably be pretty good at it. And then my big impact for this week, I am taking Kemba Walker. We've already spoken about him a couple of times tonight. Kemba Walker, this past Monday, won the NBA's Sportsmanship Award during the NBA award ceremony again this past Monday. So congratulations to Kemba. We'll see if he stays a Hornet. Now, with all that being said, let's move on to the RO Sports Show's poll of the week. We also try to do this to finish out the show. And we asked this week, the Charlotte Hornets drafted Miles Bridges, Devontae Graham, and a guy we didn't mention earlier basically because I've never heard of him and his name's hard to pronounce. It is Arnaldus Kuboka. He's from Estonia, but he's like 7'2". Anyway, they drafted all these guys in last Thursday's NBA draft. So we asked, did Buzz City do enough in this draft to make a playoff run next season? And your choices were, yes, they're in next year. No, didn't do enough. Well, this one went 100% to 0. They did not do enough. So let me ask you guys this real quick. Did trading Dwight Howard have any bearing on these people voting this way, you think?
No, because it really didn't. It didn't really did the Hornets any justice, even with Dwight Howard.
Didn't matter either way.
No, because from my understanding with Dwight Howard, he got traded to Brooklyn Nets and he had a contract buyout, so he's an unrestricted free agent.
Oh, so Dwight could still end up somewhere else.
Yes.
All right. Back in Charlotte, maybe.
Could be.
Could be. What do you think, Russell? I mean, these are Miles Bridges is, he's a transitional guy like you mentioned. I think Devontae Graham could eventually become a star, but do you agree with the poll? Did they do enough to get in the playoffs next year in the East?
No, I don't really think so. I think they're going to come up short.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree. I don't. Again, I've said it once. We've said it before. It's time to start over, man. You tried this Kemba experiment, and after a while, you have to just move on and take it down the studs. And we've seen this in every sport, especially in the NBA, with the Suns just got through doing it. Now they're starting to, build back up by getting Ayton. They've got Booker there, so maybe the Hornets going to have to take a look in the mirror and say, guess what, fellas, it's time to start over. So, but instead of starting over, we're going to finish up with our Love It or Hate It. And let's start with basketball. So there is a specific Lakers fan. I'm assuming he lives in L.A. Who knows? He's got too much money, though, because he is putting together over 40 billboards in the Los Angeles area trying to woo Paul George and LeBron to L.A. over the summer. Love it or hate it?
I love it because this is an opportunity for the Lakers to get two of the greatest players in the NBA.
All right.
Well, this is where I say I LOL about, but I also love it because that's just hilarious.
I love it too, and I mentioned this. Philly's done this. New York's done this. I mean, come on, you're all trying to get
but
LeBron to come
one
to the
guy.
city.
This isn't
one
the whole
guy.
city.
One guy, 40 billboards, and billboards are not cheap,
especially in LA.
Especially in LA, and I'm sure he's got a couple on the 405 out there. Of course, you just sit in traffic there. You got plenty of time to look at the come to LA. They probably put LA Bron. Didn't I think that's what they did? Now, with that being said. Next, love it or hate it. LeBron doesn't want any elaborate recruiting pitches after we just said that. Love it or hate it.
I love it because it's hilarious.
I love it too.
I love it too because guess what, man? It's going to happen whether you want it or not because you're LeBron.
Yeah.
Moving on to kind of a cross between college football and college basketball. Chris Webber has accepted Jim Harbaugh's invitation to attend a football game at the Big House this fall. The reason this is kind of significant is, of course, as a Tar Heel fan, we know Chris Webber called that famous timeout. They lost, 1995 national championship at Michigan, Fab Five, to our Tar Heels. Of course, we find out a few years later they had to vacate that because, unfortunately, a lot of those guys were accepting money. Long story short, Chris Webber hasn't been able to step on campus in the better part of a decade. So, him accepting Harbaugh's invitation, coming back to the big house, coming back on campus, love it or hate it.
I love it because this is an avenue where he can come back and be a part of a great alumni there. He gave his time and talent there, and I truly believe he'll get a standing ovation when he arrives.
I think you're right. What do you think? Love it or hate it, Russell?
Yeah, I'm gonna say love it too because I mean, you know, regardless of the money issue, you know, he was still a great player. So
he
did gave a lot to Michigan, and I think that's a good thing.
He was, and even though they weren't able to win a national championship, that was you could make an argument that was one of the best college basketball starting fives of all time.
Yeah.
Of course, Chris Webber probably the most prominent out of those, along with Jalen Rose and Juwan Howard. So I'm gonna say love it. You know, it's never too late to go home.
Never too late.
You know. Moving on, Westgate over in Las Vegas is now taking bets on teams to make the college football playoff. You know, we talked about it before. Sports betting is now on a state-by-state basis. If your state wants to do it, you can. If your state doesn't, then they don't have to. And if you don't like that, vote them out. Anyway. But this is the thing, like they're taking bets on anybody. Of course, Bama's the favorite now, but they can take a bet on anybody from Bama to Toledo State. If you want to bet on Toledo State, I don't even know if that's a school, to make the college football playoff, you can, and you'd make a buttload of money if you got it right. Of course, you can't, but nonetheless, being able to bet on this in Vegas, love it or hate it.
I love it. Take a chance and win some money.
All right.
I'm gonna say love it too, and I'm going to put my bet down that Coastal Carolina's going to be national champion.
There you go. So that's you can bet on anybody you want to. Of course, Bama's the favorite. I would imagine Clemson's probably up there. You know, your usual suspects,
Yeah.
Ohio State. I don't even know who else would be up there, but Georgia, Oklahoma, Michigan, maybe.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man. I find it. I'm not sure how much money you'd have to put down to get something good out of it, but I just don't know if I want to bet on that. But I'm okay if people want to bet on this, so I'm going to say love it. You want to throw your money and try to win $10 grand, $10 million, anything in between, have at it. So, moving on to the NFL. Jameis Winston, former Florida State Seminole, is facing a 3-game suspension to start this upcoming NFL season for allegedly groping an Uber driver. And I'm pretty sure we're all going to say hate it here, but love it or hate it.
I hate it, man. You need to grow up, dude, and take the suspension and move on.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to say hate it as well. I mean, he's had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I'm going to say hate it too. And the reason I brought this one in here, obviously we'd all say hate it because, you know, if this is exactly what happened, then shame on you, first of all. But isn't this kind of a pattern from Jameis Winston, the guy that stole crab legs out of a supermarket? You know, like, who does stuff like that? That's so stupid to me. I mean, you're in the NFL now. You have to. You're the face of a franchise. You have to watch what you do, not only on the field, but especially off the field.
Yeah.
By the way, you know, I get on these professional athletes for drinking and driving when you can hire someone to take you home.
Yeah.
He may have been drunk, and I admire him for getting an Uber, but that doesn't mean that you can reach over and grope her either, you know. So, got to find the line, Jameis. Now, let's move on to some professional wrestling. We haven't talked about it in a couple weeks, but we talked about
Money in the Bank.
Money in the Bank. But WWE, we did talk about this a few weeks ago. And Fox Sports have come to an agreement. SmackDown would be moving to Fox October of 2019, so just about a year and a half from now. But that's not what we're loving or hating. What we're loving or hating is WWE calling SmackDown their flagship show. Let me start with you, Jeremy. Love it or hate it?
I love it.
All right.
I'm going to say love it too because I am the blue brand
I knew
guy.
you were going to say that.
And,
with the red shirt on.
Well, that's the Alabama representative.
Man, I
here.
thought you were raw, man.
No, I remember growing up, of course, it's going back to Friday Night SmackDown, of course. So I've always grew up watching Blue Brand because I couldn't stay up all night watching Monday Night Raw.
Right.
That was school night. Friday, you had all night to do whatever you want. I watched SmackDown. So
I remember SmackDown was on Thursdays when we were coming around.
It was. It started out on Thursday.
I grew up around the Friday Night SmackDown.
I'm going to say hate it, but I get why WWE's doing this because they just made a cool, $1 billion off of this. So
and they extended the one with USA.
But if somebody's offering me $1 billion for SmackDown, guess what? That's the flagship show now.
I think a lot of people are actually transitioning over to it. It's not as long as Raw. It's 2 hours. They're still keeping it 2 hours when it goes over to Fox. You know, the storylines are being told a lot better over there as well. There's a lot more action as well going on in the ring, which is why people want to pay to go see. They don't want to see people just talking. They want to see the action. So I can totally see why people are moving more to the SmackDown Live brand than the Raw brand.
Yeah. But again, I mean, as long as Raw's been around, it's been the flagship program because it was the first program. Also, if they didn't have The Rock come through, they wouldn't even have SmackDown. Let's just put that out there.
There you go.
Maybe they should cut The Rock a little bit of course, Dwayne Johnson don't need any more money. Never mind. Let's finish up, love it or hate it, with my favorite sport, baseball. Edwin Jackson, a starting pitcher, got called up by the Oakland A's this past Monday. And the significance of this, with him being called up, he now joins his record-tying 13th team. So this guy's played for almost half the teams in Major League Baseball. So just the longevity of it, being able to stick around, love it or hate it.
I love it. At least you have a job where you can perform your talents.
That's right.
I'm gonna say love it. That's really cool.
I'm gonna say love it, and I wanted to finish with this one because, as you guys know, Scott Emerson is a guy that a good friend of the RO Sports Show. Has done us a lot of interviews, not only here in the studio, but at their spring training, at their Coliseum in Oakland. So I texted him during a game, which is always cool. He texted me back in the clubhouse, which is doubly cool. And Edwin Jackson, his numbers Monday night were 6 innings pitched, 6 hits, 1 earned run, and 7 Ks. So for a guy that's moved around that lot, I said, what's this guy, what's his deal? Why has he moved around? Scott basically said he's got a lot left in the tank. And I said, how'd he do overall? And he said, like anyone else, mixing speeds and changing locations. So that's from Oakland A's pitching coach. So we get it right from not the man himself, but the man adjacent to himself. So
the man behind the man.
That's right, the man behind the man, Scott Emerson. So that's going to do it for this edition of the RO Sports Show. And as always, there are 1,000,001 ways to watch and listen to us. So if you don't know by now, shame on you. But Facebook, YouTube, specifically the RO Sports Show's Facebook page, the Richmond Observer app. If you want to listen, you can do that on The Classic Rock. I'm sure I'm leaving a bunch out because there are a ton of ways, and of course, it's all free. So for Russell Parker, Jeremy McKenzie, I'm Matt Harrelson. We'll see everybody right back here next Thursday for 5:30 for more from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Have a great week.